What does the Mike Tomlin tipping point look like? What does the Pittsburgh Steelers have no choice but to move on? It's over. It was fun while it lasted. So many memories. Didn't think it would come to this end this quickly, but the abruptness of the downfall has just reached a tipping point, a boiling point, an end that cannot be avoided any longer. What does that look like? When do the Steelers get there? What would it take for the Pittsburgh Steelers to get there? I think a better question is, can it happen this weekend? What's going on, everybody? I'm Noah Strackbine. Thank you for jumping on to another episode of Steelers to Go, your daily dose of Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talker. Check us out anywhere that you get your podcast. As always, before we get going here, hit that like and subscribe button. I can't thank you guys enough for all that you do. It's crazy to see some of you say things like, we're in your top 5 of podcasts listened to in 2025. The gratitude is unreal, guys. And I honestly cannot say thank you from the bottom of my heart enough for this and everything that you guys do. Now let's talk some Mike Tomlin. The Pittsburgh Steelers head coach is obviously under pressure. This is the first time, I think, ever that Mike Tomlin has been on the hot seat. And I think that the longer you hold off the hot seat, the quicker it heats up. And it's been 19 years for Mike Tomlin. I think the last 8 have been occasions where you're thinking maybe it could start to kind of heat up. Maybe you could put the seat warmer on just a little bit, low temp, and let it rise from there depending on the outcome of the future. And then the future gets worse, and then the future gets worse, and then the future gets worse. And eventually you're sitting around going, I cannot believe, is this thing broken? There's no chance that it is still not warm on Mike Tomlin's seat. And then in the blink of an eye, it just catches on fire. And it kind of feels like that's where we are. That the Pittsburgh Steelers know that Mike Tomlin's on the hot seat. And here's the thing. Those inside the building, sources have told me that there is no talk of firing Tomlin, that there is no talk of moving on. But we've had this conversation before. That doesn't matter today. There are 5 games left in the NFL season. That's 5 games for Mike Tomlin to prove that he still belongs in Pittsburgh and that everything's going to be fine. It's also 5 games of fans making it so known, so much more known, that they are over Mike Tomlin. That the chants and the boos and the lack of attendance and the aggravation can just grow. It is 5 games, 2 of which will be home, where things can get incredibly loud for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And how loud those chants are, how loud the boos are, how frustrated everybody is going to be the deciding factor on whether or not the Pittsburgh Steelers actually have those conversations in-house about moving on from Mike Tomlin, or if they choose to avoid them. Because Art Rooney does not look at this as the Pittsburgh Steelers need a new head coach. He thinks Mike Tomlin's very capable. He thinks Mike Tomlin is a coach that could win a Super Bowl, and he plans to try and give Mike Tomlin that opportunity to win a Super Bowl. But Art Rooney would not fire Mike Tomlin. The Mike Tomlin Pittsburgh Steelers split would not happen because Art Rooney doesn't think that he's a capable head coach anymore. It would happen, and the reason that it's realistic for it to happen at really any point right now is that the fan base has made it so abruptly known that it is over, that they have gotten so loud and so out of control that Art Rooney has to decide between the fans or his head coach. And you could be an owner of an NFL team, but let me tell you this right now, the fans pay your bills. The fans are the people that you're working for. And you're going to pick the fans all the time in the right circumstance. Fans complaining and calling out Mike Tomlin on social media, Art Rooney can ignore that. fans booing Renegade and chanting Mike Tomlin needs to be fired during games, he cannot ignore that. And if they get louder, it only makes him think more and more and more. So here's where it gets interesting. When can it happen? When can the tipping point actually hit? When could the Mike Tomlin thing officially be over? When can the Pittsburgh Steelers actually decide, yep, it's time to move on? I think this weekend is a good indicator. Pittsburgh Steelers, Baltimore Ravens, an AFC North game that likely decides who has a real shot at winning the AFC North this season between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens. And if the Steelers have any chance to rebuild this thing in the last 5 weeks, or if it's just going to continue to get way worse. Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated had this to say on the matter. Speaking on the MMQB podcast, he said, quote, "This feels like a much bigger game for Pittsburgh than it does Baltimore. It just feels like with all the noise around them, it just feels like to me, like this is sort of a tipping point for them. Maybe it's superficial. It might be. That might not be reflective of the way the people in the building feel, but they're sitting here at 6-6. If they lose this one, then that Monday night game against the Dolphins becomes a referendum on Mike Tomlin. If they lose by a couple of touchdowns, I mean, look out. Now the discussion turns into something that it isn't quite yet, and it's already, again, kind of hot there." I agree 100%. If the Pittsburgh Steelers lose big time to the Baltimore Ravens, if this is a multi-touchdown difference between two AFC North opponents, rivals that are sitting in first place in the AFC North, fighting for a playoff spot, a division that the Pittsburgh Steelers had so locked away at one point this year when the Pittsburgh Steelers were sitting there at 4-1 and the Baltimore Ravens were 1-5, and it was all but over. The fat lady was warming up. Those vocal cords, they were getting ready to sing. And the Steelers have collapsed. If they lose to Baltimore by multiple touchdowns, I think that next Monday, the boos do not wait for a bad offensive possession. The fire Tomlin chants do not wait for a bad moment in the game. Right from the jump, from the beginning, I think it could get so loud and so hot at Acrisure Stadium that Art Rooney may be forced to view this differently than he has ever viewed it before. Because the fire Tomlin chants the first time, okay, this is real. This is a real thought that we have to have. The fan base and Mike Tomlin are not on the same page anymore. But if it gets that loud, if the multi-touchdown loss to Baltimore becomes something that against Miami, it's not even about the game, it's just about the message being sent, because Matt Canada got there. We eventually hit a point where games were not about the Pittsburgh Steelers winning. They were about messages being sent from the fan base to the organization about the offensive coordinator and how they no longer want him here. That's what the games became. And that's what it will become in Pittsburgh, is we need to make sure the message is heard loud and clear. If that happens, this is not okay, there's a disconnect. This is we have lost the fan base, and it is now up to me, Art Rooney, as the owner of the Pittsburgh Steelers, to fight for the fan base. Otherwise, we're going to lose them. I really do. I think Baltimore could be a tipping point. I think Baltimore could be the real end for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I'll finish by saying this. I'm going to pick the Pittsburgh Steelers to win this game when we do our selections later today. And I feel confident in Mike Tomlin that there is a passion and a belief and a humbleness to him right now that has not been there in years. But when he went up to the podium on Tuesday, you felt it. When the Pittsburgh Steelers made moves like claiming Adam Thielen, you felt it. You felt like the Pittsburgh Steelers understood that this is serious, that this is not a lost season, but rather a lost job, and that they are now fighting. Mike Tomlin is now fighting for his job. That is not something he's ever done before. And comfort makes you lazy and complacent. And Mike Tomlin has been all of those things. Maybe not lazy, that's the bad word, but complacent for sure. Right now, he has been knocked off his high horse. He is no pedestal to stand on. He is a nothing, a villain to a fan base, and he needs to prove them wrong. And I think because of that, he's got a good shot to do it. But we'll see what happens, because if it goes the other way around, I think it's all but over in Pittsburgh. And I think it's a serious conversation whether the Pittsburgh Steelers are currently having those conversations or not. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of Steelers to Go, your daily dose of Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis. Find us on youtube.com/allsteelerstalk. Check me out anywhere you get your podcasts. As always, hit that like and subscribe button on your way out of here. I can't thank you enough. And I'll be back later for the flagship show. Until then, enjoy another beautiful day in the Burgh. Peace.